go ahead and start.
You got it. Fantastic. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming. So this is the roles and responsibilities for training signing authorities. We're going to take a look at the conference agenda. So in just a few moments, Vicky Tugas from the Ministry of Labour, Immigration, Training and Skills Development is going to go through the signing authority process. So she's going to take from about 10 to 10:50. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to talk about the IHSA, what our experiences in the aggregate industry and the resources that we offer. That's going to be around 10:50 to 10:15. And then Workplace Safety North is going to come in at 11:15 to 11:40. Scott Needs and Patrick Valancourt will talk about their experiences in the industries that need signing authorities and the resources that they offer to support those industries. Then we'll open the session up for questions and answers from 11:40 to 12 p.m. So we will ask that you hold your questions to the end of the session. Of course, you're welcome to put them in chat as we go, and we will record those and we'll review those questions at the end of the program. So you're welcome to throw them in there, but otherwise, we're going to hold off on answering any of those questions until the end of the program. We're going to go through some of the Zoom controls, the features, the functions with this platform here. So you should see this bar. Now it can move around the screen depending on how you have your view set up. Commonly, it's along the bottom of the presentation. You'll see this bar. On the left-hand side, you should see a speaker icon with the mute. So please ensure that you are muted throughout the session until we open the session up for questions, for example. There's a video icon beside that. You're welcome to turn your cameras on if you want. Then we get into, there's a participant side panel and a chat panel. So again, if you want to ask questions throughout the presentation, you don't want to forget to note them at the end, for example, throw those in chat and just bear in mind, again, we're gonna answer those at the end. You guys aren't going to be able to share your screen, so no issues there. And there is a raised hand function. So there's a button, a reactions button, where you can give thumbs up and things like that. But again, we're holding questions to the end. So there we are. The red button on the bottom right-hand corner. If you press that, it will cause you to leave this session, and it'll put you back to the event page. We are going to leave. Here we go. We are going to leave a networking session open. So if you experience any technical difficulties throughout the presentation, hop into that networking session, and we'll have a representative there who can assist and get you back in with minimal delays. On the event page, you should see this here in the top banner, top right-hand side of the page. You'll see a number of tabs. You'll see a lobby tab. The lobby is where you can chat with participants and the speakers. So feel free to jump in there and chat. It looks like a lot of you are already in there telling us where you're coming from, which was fantastic. Thank you for that this morning. The sessions tab will provide session information. There's also attachments containing resources and information discussed in the presentation. So if you want some downloadable information, some takeaways, and access to some of the resources we'll talk about through the program, they're going to be housed in that sessions tab. So feel free to click on that and download anything that you feel that will be beneficial to you. The speakers tab will provide information on the speakers today, including access to their LinkedIn profiles if you want to check out everyone's qualifications and experiences. Okay. Right, so the networking session, I mentioned this here briefly. The networking session will remain open throughout the full conference. If you're experiencing any technical difficulties and during breaks, we encourage that you hop into that networking session and chat with each other on breaks, or again, if you're experiencing technical difficulties, we'll try to help you out. We'll have a representative in that session there. At the end of the program, there will be a survey pop up. So please, we ask that everyone fill out the survey. It's just a brief couple questions on your experiences, some opportunity for feedback on the information you got, and it'll help us build our presentations in the future. So please complete that at the end of the program. So that'll pop up press the share feedback button there and fill out the short few questions. And now we're going to take a moment of silence. So an Ontario worker will die from a workplace injury or occupational disease today. So we ask that you join us in taking a moment of silence to honor the lives impacted and reflect on how we can ensure every worker arrives home healthy and safe. So please join us. Excellent. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. Okay. And now, to get us started off, I'd like to introduce you to Vicky Tugas. Vicky is an employment program consultant.
Just let me.
Sorry, I apologize. Just, again, reminder to keep yourselves on mute. My apologies. So Vicky is an employment program consultant with the Apprenticeship Operations Unit at the Ministry of Labour, Immigration and Training and Skills Development. She lives and works in the North region in the Thunder Bay area, and has worked with the modular programs for over 20 years. So without further ado, please assist me in welcoming Vicky Tugas.
Thanks, Ryan, and thanks everyone for attending our session. I'm just gonna share my screen and walk you guys through. Second. It's working. There we go. Okay, so welcome to the roles and responsibilities of signing authorities.
Vicky, I don't think it's up.
Oh, it's not working? Okay, 1 second here. It says it is, but there we go.
Now it's coming. It's coming now. Perfect,
Okay.
thank you. Perfect.
Good. Okay. Okay, so welcome everyone. I'm going to walk you through the roles and responsibilities of signing authorities in modular programs. First, I'm going to take you to, we're going to talk about the history of modular training. So modular training is created when reports and data identify a high degree of risk in an occupation. So for example, back in 1979, there was what was called the Hams Commission report, and information came out of that deemed specific training for the safety of employees and workers in the field. So it can also be initiated by a coroner's request and a recommendation from provincial analysis. So they deem that there needs to be additional steps taken in a certain area of work, and special training is created. And the modular training programs were first implemented in 1979 in the mining sector at the request of the Workers' Compensation Board through the Ministry of Labour at the time. In 1982, the Industrial Employment Standards Committee of the Ontario Mining Association appointed a technical subcommittee to develop a skills training program common to all underground hard rock first line production supervisors. In 1988, the Cutter Student Operator Program was developed, and it was the first program to be implemented in the forestry sector. And as we know, in recent years, a number of other non-mining programs have been implemented. Okay, just a reminder to everyone to please mute your phones and your microphones so that we don't get any feedback. So there are 7 occupations with modular requirements: asbestos abatement, which also includes the worker and the supervisor, commercial vehicle, cranes, forestry, foundation drill rigs, mining, and water meter installation. So what is modular training? Modular training programs are on-the-job, competency-based training programs that provide a hands-on and a system of certification or accreditation. The Ministry of Labour, Immigration, Training and Skills Development MLITSD. Some of you would know us as MTCU, Ministry of Training, Colleges and Universities, and then we became MLITSD, which is Ministry of Advanced Education and Skills Development. We then became merged with the Ministry of Labor and became the Ministry of Labor Training and Skills Development. And most recently, they have included immigration. So currently, we are the Ministry of Labor, Immigration, Training and Skills Development. And we are responsible for developing the program. So it's made up of program guidelines, training standard documents, and all of this is developed in consultation with established tripartite committees. And the tripartite committees have representative members from the industry, labor, and government. So it's done in conjunction with all of those people at the table to create the training program. The ministry administers all the modular training programs, and the ministry also provides the trainee with proof of their training and their accreditation. The ministry also enforces the requirements in the regulations. And the Ontario Health and Safety Act, OSHA, legislation requires that employers who are engaged in specific occupations to establish and maintain modular training programs. So it's part of the legislation that if you work within those specific occupations, you need to maintain these modular training programs. So how does one go about doing that? So to establish a modular training program, an employer applies to their local ministry apprenticeship office for what's called signing authority. And you apply within a special program. So whatever program area of occupation you are in, that is the area that you're going to apply for signing authority. So how do you find your local apprenticeship office? So we have, I'm gonna be able to drag this over so you can see the ontario.ca website has Employment Ontario apprenticeship offices, and this link will be provided. It's part of the slide deck and will be provided after. But you can go in and search your area. It has a map you can search, and the contact information for all our local offices are there, including generic email addresses and phone numbers for contacting your local apprenticeship office. Okay. Once you find your local apprenticeship office, they are going to be your connection to getting the information you're hearing today and also much more detail. They'll be able to provide a review of the program you're working in, the area of occupation to make sure you're applying for the right signing authority, and they'll walk you through everything step by step. So once you make that connection, that's where you're going to be able to get the majority of your information. But let's go into what is a signing authority. So a signing authority is a person designated by their employer and authorized by the ministry to be accountable for the quality of training, maintenance of training records, and determining the competency of company employees for modular accreditation. So that signing authority is part of that employer, and they hold the responsibility for the training of all employees within those work areas that require the modular program training. So to be eligible for signing authority and to qualify, the employer must be registered business in the province of Ontario, and they must be engaged in the activity for which signing authority is being requested. So the specific activity being done by that employer is the program that they will be requesting signing authority in. They also need to satisfy the criteria outlined in the signing authority guidelines section of the program guidelines, and we'll get into more details about that in a bit. Okay. The responsibilities of a modular signing authority. So one of the most important things that has to be done is they approve the trainers to train the employees at that specific site. They ensure and maintain quality training for the company employees, and they ensure that the employees have demonstrated competency in the training modules as outlined in the ministry training standards and work in compliance with the occupational health and safety and related legislation. They are accountable for maintaining training records and determining the competency of company employees for modular accreditation. So they sign off saying that these employees are trained. They sign the training reports and they maintain the training records for all company employees. They submit original training reports and training applications to the local ministry office. So where do we get these type of forms? And we will take a look at them. So we have Publications Ontario, which is a public website where forms can be, drag it over so you can see, forms can be ordered. So if you were to type in modular programs, I'm up in the north, so my computer's a little bit slower. Yeah, I'm going to take out programs because it's probably going to give me too many. So modular. And this is where you'll find modular training applications, training reports, and those are the forms that the ministry has created. Now, when you make that connection with your local apprenticeship office and your reviewing signing authority, they will go through all of this with you. They have forms available, but once you get established and you need extra forms, you can go to this public website and order some forms. They are free and they will send them. You can put it in order and they will be delivered directly to you. But once again, your local apprenticeship office is also there to help you with that. So what I thought I would do is I will show you some of the forms. So this is a signing authority form, application form that you're going to fill out with your local apprenticeship office, ETC. They are going to go through it with you step by step. This form that I have on the screen is the most current version that actually hasn't been released yet, but it does have our current ministry name and a few updates in it. There are a number of forms out there because employers do have stock, and we are accepting all forms. Mostly it's the ministry name that has changed on all of them. But it would be filled out on here, the program that you're applying for, the type of company you are, your address, telephone number, all your contact information, your position. Email address is very important. We're getting very digital and a lot of information is sent through email. So that's very important, having that on there. And right on this form, it has your signing authority guidelines, which I mentioned earlier. These are, again, it's work, you're responsible and you're required to work within the Ontario Health and Safety Ontario Health and Safety Act, the Ministry of Labor, and all the program guidelines that you're applying for. You're understanding the definition of a signing authority as a person who's designated by their employer and your responsibilities within that position. Again, ensures that the company employees are trained. Signing authorities must be the owner or employee designated by the employer. One person per company is allowed per program. It's non-transferable. You will receive, when you have your meeting with your ministry ETC, you will go over the training standard for the specific program that you're applying for, the trainer guidelines, and also any specific guidelines for that program. You must identify your trainer. As I mentioned earlier, you're responsible for obtaining a trainer. There is no trainer list. The ministry does not provide a list of trainers. We don't approve trainers. It's up to employers to ensure that they seek out and find qualified trainers within their program. Some can be in-house or it can be external. That depends on the employer's choice. And the signing authority must notify the ministry of any changes of their trainer. Again, we don't approve it, but what it does is it gives a tracking in our system, who your trainer is and when and if they change. They're responsible for the quality of training and ongoing for both new and experienced employees. They determine which modules the company employees must undertake, and demonstrate competency and can be accredited in the training modules described in the training standards. So again, it's knowing your program, it's reviewing all the required program guidelines and training standards and making sure that employees are trained appropriately. And then they're responsible for signing and submitting the training applications and the training reports into the ministry. And they also maintain their records for the company. And it may be suspended or revoked depending on the ministry, if anything, for due cause. And the signing authority may be called on to describe the training received by company employees. So if there is some type of inquest or any type of investigation within an incident or anything at the employer, the signing authority is responsible for producing those training records and describing the training and how the training works for that employer. Okay, so this is the form that's going to be filled out with the ETC. And then one of the, this one here is the modular training application. So once you have you're approved and you have your signing authority and you're going about training employees, we need to document that. So what you do is you register the employees within that modular training program. So this is the application, it's filled out, it details the specific program, and then the trainee information is completed in full here. Again, email addresses are really important and they're added to our newer forms. Your employer information, when you're approved for signing authority, you will get certification and it will have an employer ID number, and that's the ID you're going to put on all your training documents and submit first when you submit them. So name, email, and then for forestry has their own section. For the Common Core, they want the date and the trainer's name in there. And then there is an authorization. So the trainee is going to sign off on this and sign and date along with the signing authority. And this is submitted to the ministry and it registers them for that program. It has them registered into it. Then once the employees start to complete their modules within their program, there is a modular training report. So again, it's program information, trainee information, and the employer information. And then this is where specific modules based on the program that you're training the employees in can be put into here. Signed by the trainee, and then also signed by the signing authority. Okay. And those are submitted to the ministry. Okay, so there we go. I reviewed that on the form, but just to reiterate that it's really important as the signing authority in that program for that employer, you need to know the guidelines and the requirements of that specific program and what needs to be, your employees need to be trained in order to get properly accredited. And again, you may be called upon to provide any training, any information from the employer's side if requested. So part of the role in obtaining a trainer, what the trainer requirements are. So they must have completed a Train the Trainer program. We don't have a ministry Train the Trainer program. It's a Train the Trainer program that provides them the skills to be able to deliver training. They're highly skilled in the area of expertise. They've been trained in application of the Act and regulations pertaining to the specific modules being instructed. They are trained to the employer's standards, to the company standards. They prepare the lesson plans and outline course materials to be used. So again, the ministry doesn't provide training materials. We have the training standard, and they will develop and create lesson plans and outline a course that they will train these employers so they get the skills that they need. And they must be certified and accredited in the program and any specialty modules. And this requirement, of course, changes within each program. So that's why it's really important. As much as there's generic general signing authority guidelines and what you're responsible for, every program has different requirements, and you need to make sure you understand the program guidelines and training standards. The trainer, they're responsible for training the employees and recommending to the signing authority those who demonstrate competencies in the program. The trainers, like I said, can be internal or external, and the ministry doesn't endorse or provide any list of approved trainers. as a signing authority, you can be the trainer for the company, but you cannot sign off on any training documents or train yourself. So there needs to be a second signature in there. And again, working with your local, if you're in that situation, a local office can make sure that you're signing off and have the proper paperwork in order to receive your own accreditation. And again, reviewing and referring to the guidelines for specific trainer requirements. So there may be something specific depending on the program you're working in. Okay, the modular training standard. So like I said earlier, the ministry develops in consultation with industry and labor. They develop the training standard and they identify the skills required for that occupation and its related training program. It's intended to be used as the blueprint for training and as a prerequisite for ministry accreditation or certification. So that's where, like I said earlier, the trainer gets all the specific requirements that need to be within their course that they're going to be delivering to these employees. Mandatory for all programs that require on-the-job training. So it's laid out with the training units, and it'll have general performance objectives and performance objectives, and then skills. So those, how it's broken down is what they're going to use to create that training. And the trainers and workers are required to sign off and date each skill upon successful demonstration and completion of the skill. So again, going back to that training application and training report, the report's going to have each module, and then they would sign off showing that they've done their training. So in order to receive accreditation, so there's 4 types that can be granted to a trainee depending on the program. So the certificate of achievement, certificate of completion, certificate of qualification, and then a transcript. So training applications are submitted to the ministry along with training reports. Once those are entered into our system, they match up. The system will automatically take the training application and attach the reports to it, the modules to it. Once they have the required modules for that program, the system will automatically send the employee their accreditation, whether it's a C of A, a C of C, or a C of Q. They'll automatically get that. That certificate is the property of the employee, not the signing authority, not the employer. It belongs to the employee, so it is mailed directly to them. There are transcripts, and that is what your ministry enforcement officers are going to look for if they're at the job site. They're looking for transcripts to show that the employee was properly trained. Transcripts, again, are the property, they belong to the employee. So employers train their employees within these programs, and you need to have the employee provide you a copy of their transcript. Some may come with transcript if they've been previously trained. If you've trained them, you want to get up-to-date transcripts with your additional training on them. Again, the certificates come out of our system, but the transcripts need to be printed manually and can be requested. So they are the property of, like I said, the trainee. Let me just a second here. That's the training report. I'm just going to pull up so you can see. Hopefully, there we go. So this is a modular program consent form. Now you're going to work with your local apprenticeship office. Currently, we don't have a provincial one. Each local area will have their own that's designed for their area, what they require. But basically what it is saying that I have been trained and I am in these specific programs, and I am giving permission to the ministry to release my transcripts for these programs to this employer, and you put in their contact information, and then when the ministry receives this, they can print out the transcript and forward it to the employer, because you're going to want a copy of that for your files too. But the ministry cannot release transcripts to an employer without this consent on file. So again, working with your local apprenticeship office to make sure that you provide them the consent that they require in order to print those transcripts for you. An employee, you can have them contact the ministry directly and get a copy of their transcript. That can be done at our Employment Ontario Client Contact Center or the local ministry office, and get copies of that. Okay. Oops. Lost my page here. Just 1 second. Okay. Okay, let's move on. So part of the signing authority guidelines is a signing authority audit, and there's separate guidelines that are provided when you sign up and get approved as a signing authority that the ETC will, Employment and Training Consultant, will go through with you. So the company's signing authority will perform an annual audit to evaluate the effectiveness of and compliance with respect to the ministry signing authority guidelines. So it's your audit within the company. You're responsible as a signing authority to do this annually, to audit your trainers that whether they're third party that you've hired or whether they're in-house, to make sure that their effectiveness and compliance with the standards for safety, quality, and performance. So you're going to evaluate the quality of the lessons that they're giving, observing the trainer instructor teaching techniques. So they're learning the behavior in the training sessions. How are they delivering it? And then how are they evaluating? Because they're letting you know who's qualified. And auditing the trainee performance, including the hands-on approach. So it's doing that internal audit to make sure that the training within the company is at the standard as to when you hired that trainer, and you want to monitor it every year. So it's going to ensure that the trainer skills, employee performance, and program quality remain current at the highest standard throughout the province. So it provides documentation for our inspectors when they come in to visit your place of employment as part of their quality and check, to make sure that training is at the ministry level that it needs to be at. The results of the audit must be communicated to the site senior management, so involving management within the company, and any deficiencies that need to be identified. The audit report will serve as a starting point for the next year's audit, and results of the audit will be kept with the ministry inspectors. Okay. So we talked about the training application and the training report, and that they need to be submitted to the ministry for entry into our system in order to provide the proper accreditation. So I believe it was back in 2007, the ministry created access called One Key to our Employment Ontario information system for apprenticeship. So we call it EOIS APPR. Employers can apply to get access to that system as a subscriber, and then you would have someone part of your company who would do the data entry of these training modules directly into our system. It's a bit of a process, but definitely the benefits of it are, I mean, you wouldn't even have to fill out the paper form. You're going to key it right into the system, and it would automatically print out that training application and that training report for your records. And it would be instant. Submitting them to the office, as you can imagine, some areas, especially in the north, but even some areas in other parts of the province, can be extremely busy and get backlogged, which means you're not getting your training records inputted maybe when you need them. So being part of applying for One Key and getting subscriber rights to the system in order to enter your own definitely expedites records and keeps them up to date for you. Unfortunately, you can't print a transcript. You still need to, once they've been entered, you would need to submit that consent to the ministry and say, you know, we've entered all this information for these trainees. Here's their consent form. Please send us their transcripts. But definitely a benefit to any employer looking to keep their training up to date, especially large employers. But work with your local apprenticeship office when you're applying for signing authority and see if it's a good fit for you and the company. Okay, one other last thing I'm gonna give a little add to. So our Ministry of Labor, Immigration, Training and Skills Development, our enforcement side of the house, which is actually called Fair, Safe and Healthy Workplace Division, will be conducting a year-long campaign on the topic of Common Core training for the mining program. So this is, I think, at one time they would call them the Blitz. They will be out doing a Blitz, and it's set to start on April 1st. And it will start with the compliance assistance outreach with our safety associations, then shift to the focused inspections and run until March 31st of 2024. I believe there's upcoming webinars and information sessions between now and April 1st that you will be getting more information on that, but I thought I would just add that to the end of my presentation. So hopefully I've given you a glimpse of what signing authority is, and you get an idea of the level of quality training that needs to be out there at our employers' companies and what the process is. But yeah, I think I guess send it back to Ryan. I don't know if it wasn't in the
Perfect.
chat.
I'm actually going to jump in, Vicki, quickly
Yeah.
for a second. So we do have a few minutes. We've kind of finished up a little bit early. So I was thinking that maybe we have 6 questions that came up. Perhaps we can take a few moments now because they're specifically about your presentation to answer them now, if you're okay with that.
Sure.
So one of the questions is, how do I register a specialty module from number 770010 completed for someone registered only in the service type program 770225? And that came from Glenn.
How would you register?
First, I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a process. I don't know what level the company is at, if they have signing authority. If it's a specialty module for that program, you need to have the training application submitted, and then the modules that they've been trained in filled out on the training report once those are sent in. I don't know if he's actually looking for trainers. I'm not.
I was just looking. I don't see that. It doesn't look like he's on right now. It looks like he.
Online.
Okay. Oh, sorry. There we go. Glenn, yeah, if you could jump off there.
Sorry. Hello, Vicki. Thank you very much for that presentation. I was just wondering, so there are 2 different types of underground Common Core. You have the general underground Common Core 77010, and you have the 225 type. Now, for electricians, maintenance, staff people, when they go underground in the 225, they're only in the Common Core. The only specialty module to be registered is the U24 service vehicle. So if they need a scissor truck, say U14, it's not assigned to the 225 Common Core program. So one of the guidelines from 2014 was the specialty modules cannot be registered with the MTCU if the person is not enrolled in the underground program. It must be kept as proof of training with the employee's personal file. Because the 225 program doesn't recognize the certain specialty module.
Okay, Glenn, I think what I'm going to get you to do is feel free to connect with me directly. Sure. But definitely connecting with your own local apprenticeship office and getting information from that local employment and training consultant in that area will help you. But if you want to reach out to me, I can help forward it on. Whatever works for you. If you have a connection in your local office, they'd be able to walk you through off the top of my head without pulling up the training standards and looking through them and matching numbers.
Yep, okay. Well, thank you very much.
You'd have to wait till then. Okay.
Perfect. Thanks, Vicki. One more that we have here is, do we have to do a new signing authority application to add additional or new trainers?
Yeah, so the signing authority application form, it's also like a change form. So filling that out, having the new training new trainer added onto there and then submitted to the office. I know, especially with COVID and the ability to be able to send forms and drop off forms, sending an email to your local, once you develop that relationship and you have a contact in the office, letting them know that you've changed your trainer, sending them an email that they can also put on file would also be sufficient, but that form does serve as an application and a change form.
Perfect, thank you. The next question is, do we have to complete both of those trainee forms for each specialty module or just the second one?
Just the second one. So the application puts them in the program, and then the training report will list the specialties for each one.
Perfect. Next question, modular training application and training report on Pub Ontario websites are out of stock. There's no link to a download to download a PDF.
No.
I guess, is there an option for them?
Yeah, there should be stock there soon, but I think we continuously say that. I think as soon as the fastest we get it there, it depletes just as quick. Contact your local office. They also have some forms available, and if not, they can provide you with a PDF. So the forms that you order off the publications website would be hard copy. The training application is actually in triplicate. So the top is white, and then there's a pink and a yellow copy, one for the ministry, one for the employer, and one for the employee. That's best case scenario. But as we know, with the way things are changing, and like I said, with COVID not having those forms, they were using PDFs, and you'll just have to photocopy it to make sure that everybody gets their copies and send them in that way. So yeah, if there isn't any stock in there right now, keep checking, because we do update that and try to keep stock there, but it disappears as quick as we put it there. So contact your local office and they'll be able to connect you with getting some stock.
Perfect. We'll do one more and then we'll move on, and we can ask the rest of them at the end of the session. So is the process only required for the 7 job trades mentioned on one of the first slides?
Yes, so those are the 7 occupation areas, but within each one of those are a number of programs. So within the cranes, there's your 0 to 8 construction, there's different ones. Forestry has a number of programs within the forestry division, as does mining. There's all different levels of the different mining. And I think there'll be a lot more information as we go through this session to give different examples, especially in the mining areas.
Perfect. Thank you, Vicki. So we are going to move on to Ryan Smith. So I'd like to introduce Ryan Smith. He's a regional consultant for the Infrastructure Health and Safety Association in the North and East region. He served with the association for the past 3 years. He obtained a civil engineering degree in 2008, and prior to joining IHSA, Ryan worked in the construction, surface mining, and industrial sectors, eventually becoming a health and safety professional for those sectors, totaling over 10 years. Through his tenure, he spent much of his time overseeing the health and safety of heavy civil works, including road and bridge construction and rehabilitations, underground infrastructure works, surface mining operations for the aggregate production, and other civil-related works. In addition, Ryan participates in the Kingston Regional Labor Management Health and Safety Committee and the Surface Mining and Aggregate Sector Working Groups, which reports directly to the Section 21 Construction Committee. Ryan, I will pass it over to you. Did we lose Ryan? Just a brief hold here.
Sorry about that. Zoom just crashed on me. Can you hear me okay now?
I can hear you. I can't see you though.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
It's all right. We'll get you.
Can you see my camera? It is on.
Oh, I can see you now. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you. There we go.
My apologies. As soon as I went to hit share, it did not like. Okay, can you see my presentation? Okay,
yes, we
all
can.
right. Perfect. I apologize for the glitch there. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Vicky. Excellent information. So now we're just going to go through an overview of who IHSA is and what we can do for you to help with this process. IHSA is one of Ontario's safe work associations. We represent the aggregate sector for surface mining operations, construction, transportation, and utility trades. There are a number of different safe work associations. You'll hear from Workplace Safety North in just a moment, and they'll cover the sectors that they represent as well, including forestry. I don't want to give away all their secrets just yet, but there we are. IHSA's mission is to be one of Ontario's trusted health and safety resources for effective sector-specific engagement, education, products, and services. There we go. So just a little bit about myself. So my name is Ryan Smith. I have previous experience in limestone surface mines for the production of aggregates, predominantly aggregates used in concrete and asphalt, as well as various sand pits for the same purposes. I used to train, well, I still do train surface miner Common Core, as well as generic first line supervisor. I performed airborne quality assessments in pits and quarries as well when I transitioned from fieldwork to health and safety. So I have a background in industrial hygiene, and I'm qualified to do the airborne quality assessments. I'm now a regional consultant with IHSA, Infrastructure Health and Safety Association, offering training and consulting services. We're going to go through some of the training programs that we offer that are more tailored towards the mining sector in a moment. But when it comes to consulting services, one thing I like to advertise, of course, we're your resource. We're your free resource. You can call us, text us, email us, no charge to you or your employer. We can come out to your job site and help you with compliance with legislation. So hopefully everyone will use us. All right. Now, this is just a snapshot of our dedicated webpage on the aggregate sector specifically. So if you were, for example, to Google IHSA aggregates, this is the page that would pop up first. We're going to go through an overview of just some of the resources captured on here. Of course, there's many more available on our website. This is just the dedicated page for the aggregate sector. And it's going to include things like best practices, information on haulage trucks and roads, dust control and health risks. Of course, often we're talking about crystalline silica and things like that. So the web link to the website is right here, ihsa.ca again, or you can simply Google IHSA aggregates, and this should be the page that'll pop up for you. So still diving a little deeper into that web page here, if you scroll down a short distance on that web page, what you'll see is some of the training we offer that's more tailored towards the aggregate sector. Now, we can do these courses at some of our facilities. We offer what we call public courses, open to the public. You can come and attend. Many of our courses are at no charge, so it doesn't cost you a dime to show up to the program. Some of them obviously have fees. Some of the programs that we're going to just spotlight, make you aware that we offer: Surface Miner Common Core, of course, right? So we offer Surface Miner Common Core. We have programs for electrical safety, which is always going to be predominant in the mining industry. Whether you have a genset trailer, whether you're lucky enough to be tapped into the grid, we're constantly working with electrical equipment, right? We have lockout, tagout for electrical, mechanical, and gaseous equipment. So a very targeted lockout, tagout program that again will cover much of the equipment you'll be using in a surface mining operation. Another program we offer is incident reporting and investigation. If you ever have to do, unfortunately, if you ever have to do an incident investigation, it's always good to be prepared for that. What are some things that I need to be aware of as far as reporting to Ministry of Labor goes, for example, and how can I ensure that I do a good, thorough investigation to find the best preventative measures to ensure that this doesn't happen again, right? We have a signaler and traffic control program, outlines spotting and signaling for heavy equipment, moving vehicles, as well as, of course, working at heights is another one that's predominant everywhere we go. So that's just a brief snapshot on some of the training programs we offer that might aid you. Scroll a little bit further down on our webpage, and we've spotlighted some products that we offer. Again, most of these are at absolutely no charge to yourselves, either in PDF, Word, or Excel, so that you can use them as you see fit. Some of the products I'll touch on very quickly here. We have targeted articles in our magazine. So IHSA publishes a magazine quarterly. It is a free subscription. Every version of the magazine is also available for free download in PDF on our website. We have some traffic control resources. So traffic control is always a consideration. And in my experience, Ministry of Labour is always looking for traffic control in and out of the pits and quarries. Have you delineated one-way areas, turnaround spots? How should we approach aggregate piles? What side are you working at a given moment, right? So we have all kinds of traffic control resources available for you here that would show, for example, Ministry of Labour, here's the plan for the site, as well as, of course, not just Ministry, but any visitors to your site. This is how the traffic needs to move for the safety of everyone. We have a host of safety talks, and we are constantly updating our page with new safety talks. Most recently, we've added a whole section on mental health, which is it was some fantastic resources there in that capacity. So definitely check out some of our safety talks. Again, all available for free download in PDF, or you can order a hard copy of our safety talks book, and you can actually see there's the safety talk book, bottom right hand corner of the slide. Free book for our members. And of course, most of you on this call should be members. You're automatically a member of one of your safe work associations, as long as your employer pays WSIB premiums, right? So there we are. We have posters and signage that would warn of high voltage and the risk from working at heights and all kinds of things, just to get workers back into the mindset and think about the hazards they could be exposed to while they're working. Okay, this is just another simple resource. This is kind of a pamphlet. Now, I couldn't fit the whole pamphlet on the slide, and I don't expect you to read this, so please don't try. There is another page not included here. So just a pamphlet that the first portion, this portion of the pamphlet here just outlines who IHSA is and what we can do for you, much of what I've already discussed in my presentation. The second component of this pamphlet, and again, there is a portion of this missing, is more targeted information on some of the hazards that you might experience. What should we consider about the machinery we're working with, mobile equipment, dust, and of course, crystalline silica, musculoskeletal disorders, right? IHSA also offers, for the record, worksite assessments for the risk of developing musculoskeletal disorders and how to prevent that. So we can send someone else to aid you with those considerations as well. We have information, of course, for lockout, tagout, stockpile information, lots of good stuff. Now, this here is actually another fantastic resource. It was developed in tandem with Workplace Safety North. So IHSA, Workplace Safety North, both developed this safe work practices for the aggregate industry. This is a very detailed resource on over 20 different chapters covering comprehensive information specific to the aggregate industry. So we've highlighted just a snapshot of a few of those 20 chapters here. So explosives and blasting, crushing, screening, and washing operations, working with shovels, cranes, drag lines, front end loaders, dozers. Tons of fantastic resources in here, right? So if your employer, let's say you're a smaller business and rapidly growing, and now you need to develop a health and safety program and all kinds of documentation, well, this is an excellent starting point for you, where you can use this information to help build safe work practices, job procedures, and become compliant with legislation. And that's our entire goal, right? And of course, if you're having difficulty with any of that, call me, right? My phone number is going to be at the end of this presentation, and I'd be happy to help you develop those policies, procedures within reason. Right? So I'll give you the best advice I can. Back to our webpage, our website. So you scroll down a little further on our website, we have a best practices section. Again, targeted information, targeted resources for information on haulage road maintenance, surface mine traffic control, haulage truck safety, stockpile safety, and many, many other resources. So absolutely feel free to check out this component of our webpage as well. We go on to talk about the consulting that we offer. So we can do auditing, ergonomic assessment is what I was alluding to earlier. We can help you look at ergonomics and how we can prevent the development of musculoskeletal disorders, of course, injuries to soft tissues that are often lifelong injuries that recur, right? So job demand analysis, we can come out and do safety meetings if you have any interest in that. So there you are. Again, just a few of the consulting services that we offer. We also have a mining aggregate sector workshop, and this is actually a root cause analysis that we just did last week with our mining aggregate sector workshop. This one was targeted to slips, trips, and falls, which was identified to be one of the leading causes of lost time injury in the mining sector. So we sat down with industry experts like yourselves. The entire panel was people currently working in the field with significant experience. We broke down the leading causes of these conditions and what we could potentially do to prevent those. So this will actually be posted on our website in the next couple of weeks. Of course, again, just happened last week. So it's going to break down the top, I believe, 15 causes of slips, trips, and falls leading to lost time injuries and the recommended preventative measures that could be implemented in your field. It'll be a document you can use as a safety talk, for example, at the start of one of your shifts. So there you go. More on our aggregates working group. Of course, our aggregates working group is a panelist of people like yourselves. So at this point, I'm going to recommend that if you have any interest in having your voice heard for industry issues, we aid Ministry of Labor in investigating injuries, illnesses. So we just did, for example, we looked at a recent fatality, unfortunately, in the mining sector, and made recommendations through our Section 21 committee on how we could prevent this from happening in the industry again. So the bulk of this group is industry experts like yourselves, but of course there is representation from IHSA and Workplace Safety North, both on this management network here as well, just to aid where we can and make sure that your voices make it to the right places, right? So this group here has quarterly meetings. So, they're typically an hour or two. So it's not a huge demand of time. We're always looking for new people who are interested in joining the group. So there we go. I'm going to talk briefly about CORE. So in case you're not aware, IHSA is the governing body of CORE, the Certificate of Recognition, which is a health and safety management program that is a national standard. It started, of course, in Western Canada, but now has made its way across the nation. And the CORE 2020 program, for example, is now recognized by SOCI. SOCI is supporting Ontario's safe employers. That's an accreditation program from Ministry of Labor. So if you are looking towards CORE certification or building a standard, a health and safety management system like that, for example, IHSA can help you then get approved by Ministry of Labor for their accreditation program, which includes financial rebates and a bunch of things like that. So one of many ways that you can actually get paid for building a health and safety management system. And I mean, why not, right? So there we go. I'll also touch on WSIB's Health and Safety Excellence Program. So IHSA and WSN, Workplace Safety North, are both approved members of WSIB's Health and Safety Rebate Program. This is where small employers, for example, can get up to $5,000 back per year. Larger employers or high-risk operations can get up to $250,000 back per year. Yet again, another way you can receive funding to build a health and safety management system within your organization, like CORE, for example. And I'll make note that IHSA's CORE program directly aligns with WSIB's Health and Safety Excellence Program. So if you're working on one, you're kind of working on both at the same time, which is fantastic. Again, why not get some financial incentives for improving the safety culture in your organization, right? Another thing that IHSA offers is some professional qualifications, some professional certifications or designations. So we have the National Construction Safety Officer, or NCSO designation. That's a long-standing, recognized, national accredited designation. And new this year, actually new as of the beginning of this month, we have our National Health and Safety Administrator designation. So the National Construction Safety Officer and Health and Safety Administrator both require you take a number of training programs and pass examinations. So there are 2 exams, a provincial and a national standard. Again, it is a nationwide standard. The National Construction Safety Officer requires 3 years minimum field experience, boots on the ground, working in the field, whereas the health and safety administrator does not necessarily have that requirement, but it's a foot in the door to get your a professional designation, increase your ability to get the experience needed to then become an NCSO, for example. So there we are. And of course, if you're interested in adding these letters after your name and your email signature, like I get to do, we have IHSA.ca website. And you can simply, if I'm being honest, our main page, IHSA.ca, scroll down a short distance, there'll be a banner with a bunch of buttons and icons. One of them will be NCSO. So click on that to check that out. And there's my contact information. So again, I'm Ryan Smith, health and safety consultant. That's my email and my cell phone. We are a free resource for the industries that we represent. So I strongly encourage you have any questions, anything I can do to aid in your health and safety management of your company, of your programs. Please feel free to reach out. Happy to assist wherever I can. And that concludes my presentation.
Perfect. Thank you, Ryan. So we're going to jump over to Scott and Patrick. If you could complete the introduction for them for me.
Yes, thank you. Let me switch presentations. My apologies.
It's all good. So just while Ryan's doing that, so I do encourage, if you do have any questions, if you can, please put them in the chat window. I am collecting any of the questions that are going in there, and we'll ask them at the end of the session. So it does look like we are going to have approximately a half hour at the end of the session to have any further discussion or answer any questions. So if there is anything, please feel free to put it in the chat and I will put it in the queue. Thank you.
Okay, we good? You can see my screen? Perfect. Okay. So I'd like to introduce you to our speakers from Workplace Safety North. We have Scott Needs and Patrick Valancourt. Scott Needs is a health and safety specialist with Workplace Safety North. He spent over 25 years in health and safety in the paper products, construction, and mining industries. Scott has specialized in program development and delivery for various training programs, including but not limited to surface miner, frontline generic supervisor, mechanized harvesting. He's also helped maintain Safe Work Ontario certification programs for forest and sawmill operations. Scott holds his Gold Seal certification. He's a certified health and safety management systems auditor and a Canadian registered safety professional. Patrick Valancourt is a health and safety specialist with Workplace Safety North. Patrick started his career as a hard rock miner and later trained to become a hoist millwright. While working in the mining industry, he competed in several mine rescue and first aid competitions at the district and provincial level. He also volunteered with the local fire department and ranked as a captain and training facilitator. Later in his career, Patrick joined the Ministry of Labour, Immigration, Training and Skills Development as a provincial offences officer. So please help me welcoming both of these representatives from Workplace Safety North.
Oh, thank you, Ryan. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. And I'll just share my screen here. Are you able to see my screen as well?
Yes, we can.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Okay, just thank you for the introduction, Ryan, and thanks for your work, Jen. And just Vicky, and as an aside here, Vicky and Ryan, great presentations. Thank you for all that work in the background. Again, I'd just like to quickly introduce myself. Again, name's Scott Needs, and I am one of the health and safety specialists for Workplace Safety North. In my bio, it says, I represent Sault Ste. Marie area of Northern Ontario, but generally it's all areas of the province, and in the past calendar year, from Pitts in Southern Ontario out to Red Lake and all parts in between. And for my colleague, just heard today, Mr. Patrick Valancourt, no longer enforcement, but you're a fair and safe ex-ministry fair and safe officer. So I'll plan to address you different, Patrick. Welcome everybody. So just a little bit about Workplace Safety North. We are one of the 4 sector-based health and safety associations in Ontario, and we are proud to be one of the ones that are the only ones headquartered in Northern Ontario. We do provide those province-wide government-approved workplace health and safety services, and in particular for the mining and forestry sectors, as Vicky alluded to, out of the 7 modular programs. As well, we also service various businesses and communities across Northern Ontario, because we are such a vast area that a lot of our work, we'll find that even municipalities have surface mines. We help them out, or the municipalities themselves and small employers. And with all the health and safety specialists located across the province, WSN and all the legacy organizations, it'd be for shame if I didn't reach back to the previous ones, for all those legacy organizations help make an Ontario workplaces safer for more than 100 years. Been around for a long time, just as long as IHSA and some of their legacy organizations as well. So, and I just want to make sure that for some of you, when I'm talking about the legacy organizations, they shape the careers of many of us in this meeting, and many of us still reference and have their significant influence on the organizations throughout the province. Just a little bit for agenda, just going to give you a little bit about my background, go back and cover off some of Vicky's information about reviewing the Signing Authority's guidelines and audit, some of the support locations where we can help you out and where the apprenticeship offices are to supplement Vicky's presentation as well, and some of the sector-specific support that we give, in particular for forestry and mining, a few of the case studies, and then my fair and safe colleague, Patrick, will get into what an inspector looks for during a visit. So if I took a look at this, Vicky had covered quite a bit in her presentation about the history of the modular programs. And again, thank you for that, Vicky. In the mining industry, and this one's just more statistics for mining, forestry was very, very similar when I looked at the stats years ago. But because there was some increasing LTIs across the mining industry, the Ham Commission and the Elliott Lake area were very much spotlighted back in the 70s. And back for all those days, if we focus back to 1979, this is where the mandatory Common Core training was established for underground workers. But for our conversation today, I just want to put in there that some of the mandatory training that we're talking about for the surface miner and aggregate came into place back in 2002. And the frontline supervisor came in 2007. So as we're taking a look at this hasn't been, 2002, we're at 21 years in the making where we are for these ones, and that need for signing authorities were really born from these 2 programs. And for the forestry operations, as Vicky alluded to, there's some back in '88, and in the early 2000s with the tripartite committees that were out there, they put the mechanized harvesting equipment operator and the forestry road and pit program together in the same time period. And it's really interesting how those 2 programs merged from the forestry, the forestry and the surface miner program, along with that Common Core generic frontline supervisor. So my background's a little bit diversified as Ryan was going through it. And early days when the modular programs came out, you'll see here, this is what Vicky was alluding to, is like, what is the signing authority? And back in the day, we used to get these, we'll call them golden tickets, that said, Scott Needs had permission to sign off on trainers for these programs. And there are several different programs out there. And I'm going to say I just came across it by sheer luck. Was I think I made eye contact in a room, and I liked doing paperwork. I'm one of those strange guys, and said, hey, I'll take these on because this was new to the industry. And as Vicky alluded to, back in the day, there was quite a bit of paperwork to do. And now they have the one key that makes it much, much easier. But for the portion of this talk is I was there with these things as they grew, and some of the problems that came up with going through, and then realizing, hey, I've got to audit my own programs. So I did. I was the signing authority for the mechanized harvesting one. Also in the trades, we had some operators who operated 0 to 8 ton, and then our forestry road and pit program. So I don't want to forget about our forestry people. And again, want to do a shout out, because I know there's some people on this call for the legacy organizations, like with OFSWA. They were using and taking advantage of the safe work associations of those days, such as we're going to want you coming out of this one, is please seize that opportunity. Reach out to us, because we have been in the system, we understand what's going on, and we have a lot of those contacts. And again, I believe Tom Welton's on the call, and some of his members of his tripartite committees, guys did really good work back in the day putting these programs together. So I just don't want to forget that as I get into this. But anyway, so again, starting with paperwork is where I really started my career, saying by liking paperwork and keeping the forestry industry going. But why am I talking about forestry, and some people in here want to hear about mining? Well, they're very similar operations. We build roads in the bush, but we can't take say some aggregate out of Kingston and drive it up to the middle of the Timmins bush and drop that and then go get some more. So the surface mining operations in the forestry is very similar, but we got to build roads to get into where the product is. So you'll see a lot of similarities to this. And who can do this Common Core training associated with the forestry surface miner? Well, WSN can provide this either online or in classrooms. And again, a lot of this information is very similar. And I see Bernie's asking some questions there in the background. I believe Bernie, who's been around this too for quite a while, from back in 2003, is very similar. But we've got to make sure we get this all together. So again, as we went through this, the surface miner and the forestry road and pit mechanized harvesting modular programs, the 0 to 8 ton, very similar in nature. So to Vicky's point, and I'm glad we talked before this program, because when we go in there, the signing authority is really responsible for all of the different transcripts and the training that goes on, and they have to pay attention to these in the background. And there's a few of them, and just to show you sort of what they look like for the surface miner Common Core and the Common Core for generic first line supervisor. As I worked through these ones after I left forestry, you get things like achievement certificates working on a number of modules, and then you get your certificate of qualification once you finish off the whole suite of training that's in there. But more importantly, for the signing authorities, they want to make sure that this paperwork, just as far as even the worker transcripts, is flowing through the system as easily as possible. And it really is for the people, the signing authorities taking a look at this, they have to make sure that paperwork does go in a nice steady flow. And to Vicky's point, get to know your local apprenticeship offices, because the signing authority is really responsible for these. If they don't get in properly and go through the system properly, the system doesn't have it. And if there's no training record at the previous MTCU, then the proof of the training doesn't really exist. And just going to throw it there just to see if people were listening to Vicky's presentation. I'm not showing you any of my training records for the mechanized harvesting or forestry road and pit. I was the signing authority. Maybe Sarah, Caitlin, anybody else, if you want to throw in the chat why you think I don't have any of those things. I should be able to sign myself off on every module as a signing authority. Just maybe if anybody has an answer to it, throw it into the chat, and we'll keep Jen busy on the other side. So to get into the signing authority portion, what does the signing authority need to do? Well, back to Vicky's presentation with the applications, the company signing authority has to perform an annual audit to evaluate the effectiveness and the compliance with respect to the ministry signing authority guidelines. So what do we need to do besides the paperwork? It's clearly stated in there, we've got to do an audit. So there's guidelines to follow and adhere to. And she also mentioned ministry is going to have an upcoming, I'll call it an event on this. And again, if anybody wants to throw into the chat what they saw from Vicky's last slide was, what's that event all about? And Patrick and I, we're going to talk a little bit about what we're here to support and what you may see through an audit. So as far as the audit portion goes, I have a definition here that I just read from because I spent years out in the audit world, but it defines it as systematic, independent, documented, but it's really a process for gathering evidence and determine if we're meeting some predetermined criteria. So how do we do this? And again, I love doing audits, and over the years done tons of audits. I also like defeating audits. So if we took a look at some of this audit criteria, and I'll request if you're questioning how do we do this audit, give me a shout. Maybe we can come up with a predetermined criteria, but basically we're going to go out and we can support you online, in person, but where we can maybe even audit the auditors. Have you taken a look at your trainers to see if they meet, if they're very effective, or if they meet compliance with the standards for safety, quality, performance? Take a look at the lessons plans. I'll give the ministry some credit. Lots and lots of changes have come in the last few years. It used early in my career, very little changes to the ACTA regs. It's coming quite quickly. If you need some help taking a look at this, again, reach out to us and we can look at it saying, what does your lesson plan look like? Have you updated this information? Then going out there, to Vicky's points, is let's see what the trainers are doing. Are they following the criteria that we've needed and we've put together, following some of the basic criteria. And again, it's spelled out here and in the application. Talk about, are the trainees learning? What are the behaviors like once they get out there? What's the delivery like? Are we doing this by PowerPoint, sitting in a classroom? Are we out on the site? Is it just a verbal? And then last but not least, an evaluation of their teaching techniques to see if it's meeting the signing authority standard. And that signing authority for myself, I was chosen by the employer to go, Scott, take care of this because you like the paperwork. You're going to make sure this is all covered. And they made sure that we did this, or I did this in conjunction with my trainers, because if they're successful, I'm successful with it, the employer's successful. Now, there really isn't a performance technique out there right now, but if you want to reach out to Ryan or myself or Patrick after, and we can see what we can do to help you come up with some documentation to get it in front of this ministry event. But yeah, why don't we, if you want to give me a call, an email, text, just to see how we can get through this, that'd be great. Because if we can document this process using the guidelines, meeting what's on the slide and the audit material, we should be covered. And maybe Ryan, if we reach out to that labor management committee, maybe in there as well, they can put some paperwork through them to help the industry move forward. I see a smile in Ryan, so it sounds like a good idea. But let's find that path of least resistance. So again, in doing audits for years, my friends at the ministry, Vicky and formerly Patrick, they're looking for documentation to show you've done something. And if we got to provide documentation, well, let's build a quick process that'll cover off all these items on here. And then how could we be wrong if we're following what we put on paper? If we just say, oh yeah, no, I took a look last week, they seem to be good. Well, what criteria did you look at? So where could I get help? Now, my past life, I think I've put tires in every one of these communities at some point, but the red dots you see on there are every one of the apprenticeship offices pulled from Vicky's slide to say, here's where they are in Ontario, both Northern and Southern Ontario. And the black arrows pointing to any of the WSN health and safety specialists that can help you out. But again, to Vicky's point, get in there and build some relationships with the local offices. I've had contacts in Kenora, and I don't know if Vicky might remember some of them that are out in the Kenora. I've got parking tickets in Thunder Bay from pulling into the MTCU office that was there and failing to pay the meter while I run in for 2 minutes to grab some paper there. But in each one of them, I made sure that I had somebody that I could call on, because I traveled all through. If I was up in Timmins, I needed to know who was there. And I just keep them in, maybe for Mr. Parent or Tom Welton, I used to have them on my old Palm Pilot. I'm dating myself, but these locations still exist today. They're on the BlackBerry. But I really, really kept touch of where my ministry offices were, and then who the contacts were in those areas to aid me through the process. I used to call them all the time, and see a few people on there. Like if I do a shout out to Alina, I'm sure that in the past life, your organizations reached out to us. Corinne, Natalie, routinely reach out to us. Hey, how can we help? We got a quick question. Ryan's there to answer any questions as well. And Vicky, just a shout out, whoever was out in that Kenora office, always helpful. I think they worked alone in an office all by themselves. Tons of paper that were available there. So if I was always short in Sault Ste. Marie because the ministry was ordering them, when I passed through Kenora, I make sure I just load up my truck, and to her point, yeah, we cleaned them out quite a bit. So just some of the help we've given to clients, and this is just say myself personally, some sector specific support. Earlier last year, we had a client call in very, very out of breath. And hey, we had a critical injury in the surface miner area. And Scott, what do we need for the surface miner? The MOL just gave us some orders. So we supported them through the signing authority process, find that contact, and used one of my contacts up in Sault Ste. Marie. Got them through Train the Trainer, both through IHSA and Workplace Safety North. In the implementation of the program, and the firm size is roughly a little bit more than 50 people. Another one, starting the signing authority process. Been in business for 20 years, less than 5 people, family-owned business. I've done this forever, never heard of it. All right, let's get you through the system. And Scott can't get you through the system, and Ryan can't get you through the system, Patrick can't, but we can put you in place with our contacts, and then you have to build that relationship with them to go, let's fill out the application. That's the very first part. We can't do that for you. Another firm, over 500 people, changing the signing authority. And I just want to be remiss if I didn't say, if you guys are in these industries, if you had a signing authority years ago and they've long gone, because a lot of this has happened in a lot of companies who go into, we don't know who the signing authority is. Well, the employer is responsible for maintaining the signing authority. So ultimately, if we've forgotten to update the ministry with who that person is and get the paperwork in, it's just an administrative process. It's not very hard to do, but ultimately that employer is required to do it. And last but not least, supporting the licensees out there. And for licensees, it's just another word for constructor, for those of you in the construction industry, but they're overseeing a forestry or a sustainable forest license. And called up and said, hey, we've got multiple firms, Scott, we don't know how to get a hold of the MTCU office or the local office, or they won't call us back. So, hey, no problem, I can get through in a minute. Send those companies that you're thinking need some help getting their transcripts, send them to me, and I'll get them to the contacts, and off we go. And Vicky, thank you again. We have those people here in the Sioux, and again, Thunder Bay. Been down the Kingston area. I think Ryan, you and I were rooting around there years ago, trying to find who's the local person who could help us out and find some of these books. They're there. It's just in advance of needing them really quick. So some of the trainings programs that we do support for the modular programs, as Vicky said, there's seven of them out there, but just for some of them quickly, the cutter skidder program, mechanized harvesting equipment operator, forestry road and pit, road construction equipment. There's separate modular programs. There's many others as well. And if when you get the presentation, you could just click on the slide, or we've got some other hyperlinks as well if you're looking for more information, but you just click on the one that you'd want, either forestry, or we could go over to the mining programs where we've got the whole suite of mining support that we have. So I'm going to pass it over to Patrick, and Patrick, I'll mute myself, but if you like, just let me know when you want me to advance the slides.
Thank you very much, Scott, and welcome everybody to the webinar, and thank you for having us. Again, my name is Patrick Viancourt. I am a Workplace Safety North Health and Safety Specialist. My previous background, as Scott said, I was 17 years with our friends at the Ministry of Labor. They called us a provincial offenses officer, inspectors. They called us a bunch of nasty things as well, but that's what we did. We were enforcement. Prior to that, I had 20 years underground at a local mine in the Timmins region, and I did everything from basic miner to mine maintenance technician, and really enjoyed my career. It was wonderful. We did have quite a few visits from our local inspectors, and most of the staff had no clue what was going on. When the inspector showed up, the rear end slammed shut and everyone got panicky, and that's not the inspector's role. He's not there to scare you. Ministry of Labor is an excellent resource for you guys, but they are also enforcement officers. And I used to equate them with those nice people on the side of the highway. You drive by doing 95 and they'll smile. You drive by doing 120 and they want to have a chat. Well, your Ministry of Labor inspectors were very much the same thing. They used to come underground, and if everything was going well, there was no problems. If everything was not going well, you either got orders or you were issued compliance to a certain regulation or section of a regulation, or worst case scenario, you may be charged. So that being said, in my previous career, again, the Ministry of Labor, we were enforcing Section 11 for mines and mining plants, and it clearly states that the employers in the following types of mine and mining plants shall establish and maintain training programs. So again, there's several programs that are listed in Section 11, and they do include surface and underground, diamond drilling, and of course the Supervisory Common Core. And our friends at the former MTCU, MLITSD, and now amalgamated with the Ministry of Labor, are all under the one umbrella, and it is the Ministry of Labor Training, on and on and on. So we used to call it Ministry of Alphabet, and to simplify everything, we're just going to call it Ministry from now on. Just makes it a lot easier for everyone involved. The labor inspector still drives the white truck. They still show up on site unannounced, and they have privileges to go through any part of your plant or mine without invitation. So they come in, they take a look, and they're doing a general inspection. Next slide, please. We talk a lot about signing authorities. So your Ministry of Labor will be doing either we could call it an enhanced enforcement or a blitz, and they will come on site. They will be checking your signing authority audit. That is a guarantee. These people are efficient, and that's what they do. They have a point to check, and they will check it. So they will come in, and as Vicki stated, they will be looking for documentation. Again, previously, that was something I did. We'd go into the training office, and the large employers with 500 and so, they had their act together. Most of it was ready to go. It's these smaller companies that have a little bit of a problem with this. Some of these companies had no idea that the training guidelines were out there for them. The signing authority guidelines were available. So if you are a smaller company and you don't know what we're talking about right now, the information is there for you. They're available at the ontario.ca website. It's a little bit of a tricky site to navigate. So as Scott said, I would make contact with their local MTCU representatives and deal with them directly, and they'll be able to get you your forms and everything be sent to you rather quickly. Next slide, please. So I don't have much more to say about it. Just thank you for helping make your workplace a safer workplace. If you need anything, please reach out to us or any of your safe workplace associations, and we will get you the information you need. If you're not there yet, we will help you get there. So give us a call. Don't be shy. Reach out to us. Our numbers are posted. Our emails are available, and they will be included in this presentation. So please, please, please reach out to us for any of your needs, and we can help you. So thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you, Scott and Patrick. I'm going to pass it back to Ryan. He's just going to give me a minute while I get all the Q&As over to him. But I'll start off with one right now as I get this ready. Ryan and Vicki, if the signing authority can do the training, how is the trainer being audited? What would be required for proof of standards being met? So I'll leave it for either Vicki or Ryan if they want to pipe in on that one.
So the signing authority we mentioned, I think, in a couple sections of the presentation about the audit that needs to be done, and the audit's done internally with the signing authority to ensure that the trainer is still maintaining that level of training. And then the audit is reviewed by the ministry enforcement officers when they come in to review all the training documentation, and they would make any notes. So I don't know if that's answering. I don't have, tried to find it in the chat here so I could read it at the same time. I don't know if that answered all of it. I don't know, Ryan, did you have something to add?
Nope, not directly, sorry.
It was Rick, if the question isn't answered, he had put it in the Q&A. If you could just bring yourself up to you.
thank you very much, Jennifer. It's Rick Schulist here. So yeah, you identified in your slide presentation there, Vicky, that the signing authority could also be the trainer. But we understand that an audit must be conducted on that individual. So how can you do an audit on yourself and be successful at that? Yeah, we understand we're going to go back and look at those documents and say, yeah, the training was done. But if I'm auditing myself, I'm not going to give myself a brown circle, you know, in this case. So I don't know how that individual could be justified in doing both tasks.
Yeah, I don't think we see it very often, probably in some of the smaller companies, and that's where you would want to have, if they are also the trainer, you would want to have second signing along with the documentation and the audit. Part of maybe the employment, the company owner would be part of it. Again, working with your local apprenticeship office and getting process for something like that to make sure that you have everything in line for the inspectors would be my advice. It's not the usual. Usually a signing authority is not taking on the responsibility of also training, but it has been done if needed.
Perfect. Thank you, Vicky. I think that we may have lost Ryan momentarily there again.
Yeah, I fell off for a second, but but
He's back though. There we go.
There you go. So my apologies. Yeah, bringing up the questions there now. Thank you, Vicky, for taking care of that. Well, let's see here. Next up, we have says we use well-established external trainers. So they use NORCAT for mining Common Core services. Is there a template to use for the annual program evaluation? So is there a template for the evaluation of your trainers?
There's no ministry form. It's something that needs to be done and maintained within your organization, and then shown to the enforcement officers when they're there, and provide them copies, and they'll let you know if there's any gaps or if there's anything additional that they require. But we don't have, there's no forms.
Excellent. Okay, there you go. Let's see. Is there a standard auditing form? So I guess that's the same question, I guess, right? To audit your trainers. So it's no standard form. Perfect. Thank you. Is the signing authority mandatory to have by law? So if you have anything under the, if you perform operations under these 7 criteria Vicky mentioned at the start of her presentation, then yes, you must have a signing authority. Right, Vicky?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Perfect. After that, at what point is a new operator card at what point is a new operator considered certified so they can begin work? When the signing authority signs the training report, or when the Ministry of Labor receives the completed forms? Okay, so are they signed? Is an operator certified when the signing authority signs off on them, or when the Ministry of Labor receives and acknowledges them?
So they're considered trained because the employer would have training records saying we trained them, but they're not officially certified until the ministry receives the training application and report, and the system provides the certification to them, the accreditation. If there's any gap in there and there's an inspector on site, you would show them the training applications, and they would have access to ministry communication with the local office to determine if there was any errors in the entries or anything, or just a delay if they haven't received their certification or their transcripts. So, but they're not, they're trained, but they're not certified until the ministry has entered and received.
Perfect. I imagine if an inspector showed up on the job site and the training had been completed, but the certification hadn't been acknowledged, there would be some leeway to say, okay, it's in process. But there's exactly. There's a 12-month period anyways for specialty modules for surface mining anyways as well, right?
Yeah, for the specialty modules.
Right. Yes. Okay, perfect. Let's see, after that, we have what is the process for a signing authority to certify themselves on a machine?
Okay, so that's similar to what we were saying earlier. If a signing authority is looking to get certified, they attend the training, but they obviously can't just sign off on their own on the documentation. So a second signature is required by usually the trainee or management throughout the company. So again, working with your local apprenticeship office, because they're going to be the ones entering the data. So you want to make sure that they have what they need, but it is a second signature on the training. Again, doesn't happen that often, but it can. So
perfect, awesome, thank you. Then we have what program number goes on the modular application or training report for forestry equipment? The overall program number or the machine specific program number as defined in Reg 851?
So that is, and I know local offices can speak to this a bit better, but I know that is a bit of an administration issue from our end, because our system may not match the training standard that has the machine specifics. But if you work within that sector, putting the program number on the application, but then having the machine specific on the training report will usually match. But again, it's when you're submitting that paperwork to the ministry office, making sure that they have what they need.
Excellent, excellent. Okay. All right. Next question. Could you provide more details in regards to the signing authority having to notify the Ministry of Labor of any changes to the trainer?
Okay, that's listed as one of the requirements of a signing authority, is keeping the ministry up to date on who their trainer is. Again, as I mentioned, we don't approve the trainer. We don't. We have no say in who your trainer is. It's the choice of the signing authority and the employer, but keeping our records up to date, who the active trainer is for the company. And again, the form is a signing authority application and change form. So it can just be a change of trainer. You could submit the form or even contact directly with your local ETC or service delivery assistant, if that's who your communication is with the local office. I believe, they could accept an email with the name, but submitting the form is the proper change so that we have a record, which provides our inspectors with the records too of who the trainers were for the company and when it changed.
Excellent, awesome, thank you. And this was actually, I noticed a question directed at Scott during his presentation. When you're showing everyone your fancy certificates there, we had a question that said, are we still receiving these certificates, your golden tickets there?
That might be a Vicky question. That was back in the early days where I'm sure we've all gone into places where, I've got a certificate for WMIS, it's this big and plasticide on the wall. Like, we don't do that anymore, but Vicky, do they still provide, besides documentation?
Yeah, no more posters. Signing authorities are still getting like a wall certificate. So when you get your approved signing authority and it's entered into our system and you're given your number, you will get a letter and a certificate that could be hanging on your wall. And then wallet cards are provided for various programs. Again, the different certificate of achievement, certificate of qualification, but no big posters.
There you go. Okay. Let's see. Next, the approved/certified trainer or evaluator is required in the program to do an on-site confirmation of new operators' competency. And it's kind of how do we do that? We're required in the program to do on-site confirmation of a new operator's competency. How do we go about doing that? I guess is the question.
Trying to find that one.
So Bernie, perhaps you can jump off and maybe just, you had a kind of a two-part question to this.
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Sorry, I have to refer my notes here. Okay, it's the on-site evaluation. How does the ministry confirm that step is done? That's really the question. I've been around long enough to know that the original training reports actually had a line where the evaluator signed after completing the on-site evaluation, just above where the signing authority signs. And I still believe that's a good way to go to confirm the on-site evaluation has actually taken place. So that's what the question's about.
Do you mean the orientation checklist?
No, I mean the on-site evaluation, the person like myself, the qualified, approved, certified trainer / evaluator who goes on site to confirm the new operator has met all the program standards and is in fact a competent operator.
I don't know the history on if it was there at one time and it was removed, so I can't speak to that. That might be something I can come back to and respond to and get you some feedback on why it was removed.
Okay, so it's been a topic of discussion for decades, and just wondering if it's been forgotten or still something that's on the radar somewhere.
Okay, I can look into it. I don't know. Yeah, I'll have to get you some feedback on that. I don't know the history on it, so where it's at.
Okay, Thank you.
Okay, I see another question here in the question and answer section directed at Vicky. Is there any internal check and balances for registering a member? Specifically, we've seen people certified in the specialty modules, but not accredited in the Common Core program.
Okay, I'm going to try to read that because I need to have it again here. Just 1 second.
Sorry, yeah. That's the way I'm interpreting this question. It sounds like people are completing the specialty modules before the Common Core. To the best of my knowledge, that's not the way it's supposed to be done, right? Section 11 of 854 says you complete the Common Core, and then you have 12 months to get your specialty modules after that, specifically for the surface mining industry. So
this may be one of the gaps in the audit process, that if signing authorities are sending in the specialty modules, they should be verifying again in the background that they have their basic Common Core. Should be part of the indoctrination.
Like a prerequisite before you can take a specialty, although a lot of the specialties are done in-house, so maybe employers aren't recognizing that these Common Core needs to be done before the specialty modules.
And if you're submitting documentation to your local office that they've done specialty modules and they don't have the Common Core, our system they wouldn't receive a certificate because our system isn't going to match up anything. So there's prerequisites in the system in order to send out certification, if I'm reading that rightly, if they're missing them. If they're done out of sequence, that's something that, within the audit process would be captured.
Okay, yeah. So maybe it's something we should be capturing in the internal audit process for our training centers. Awesome. Okay. Hopefully that answered your question there, Rick. Another one popped up in chat. It says, with there being such a diverse breadth of equipment, work environments, and applications, how does the transferable accreditation process meet any level of due diligence? Working at Heights has credibility because it is a consistent, structured program, same with Joint Health and Safety Committee certification. When an employer receives a transcript for training that was done by another employer, how can it reasonably be expected to be 100% relevant at another site? Okay, so I interpret this to be, we have training standards developed by the Ministry of Labor for working at Heights for Joint Health and Safety Committee certification. Now, there are prescribed standards for surface mining operations and a number of the other signing authority processes. And those programs do have to be approved by the MLITSD. Is that not right, Nikki? If I want to train Common Core, I have to submit my program to the ministry and have it approved. No, Scott?
Oh, sorry. I was just going to for the one part of the question was like, I've been in this modular program for a long time. I think it's a fantastic internal responsibility system, and I'll just go on for what it's about, right? Is the employer is designating somebody responsible to put together a training program to meet all the requirements, get the trainers, and the ministry or all the booklets have the specific skills you need to meet, how to train them and put this all together. But it is an employer driven, and I'll say there's a little bit of the honor system in there, besides say Scott taking his golden ticket and signing people off, that there is an expectation in the background. And I think it's a fantastic one, because if the employer say deems Scott that he's going to make sure that the program's in place, then I've got trainers, say just I'll make this up, such as supervisors, and the supervisors and workers are going out and signing off on government legislation, machine-specific requirements, and company policies and procedures. That's the IRS in its totality. And for like the working at heights, it fits under a standard, and there are standard providers for it. And it's very, very similar to this, but this one here actually has a formalized process where you've got to approach the ministry and ask for permission to do this, get vetted for it, go in, build your programs, and then this is the whole idea behind the annual audits, to make sure your trainers and everybody's fulfilling the standard, again, for that employer. So I think it's a fantastic system, and I have for a long time. I've brought lots of these same programs right into construction. An excavator in the bush, an excavator in the mine is the same as construction, and it's the same that was on my forestry site. It's the same that's on my my yards for on industrial establishments. It's the same piece of equipment. It's a great training program. I know that went a little bit sideways, and sorry, Ryan, I'll let you keep going, but it is a good proof of the IRS working, in my opinion.
Yeah, and yeah, so a good interpretation of that as well, and maybe just to build on that, I will touch on there is, of course, as you noted, something of an honor system within this. However, I will note. Section 25 of the Occupational Health and Safety Act, of course, outlines employer responsibilities. Part of that is reviewing training standards, as well as a large component of due diligence. And you can see the same of supervisors under Section 27 of the Occupational Health and Safety Act. So there, you should be ensuring, if let's say you hire a new employee to your organization, they're experienced in the industry, but we're certified under the special modules by someone else, we still do need to validate that they are competent to perform the assigned duties. So the supervisor in the mine or project site that for that location should be supervising the individual performing the work and ensuring that they are confident. And if they're not, of course, we need to ensure that maybe they go through your own training standard, or they have the opportunity to be coached or mentored otherwise internally, right? So excellent question. Thank you for that. Now, I apologize. When it kicked me out, I did lose the rest of the chat. I do see one more question that popped up in the Q&A. It says, if someone completes the 770225 Common Core module, would they just receive transcripts, or would they also receive a certificate qualification?
Off the top of my head, I honestly don't know. In fact, I meant to make a cheat sheet to say which programs produce which certification, and I didn't. So I will have to look that up and get it back to you.
Yeah, no problem. I do know there's typically a booklet that the signer signs off on, or sorry, the trainer signs off on, the employee signs off on, and the signing authority for your organization signs off on. That's always been, in my experience, my proof of training. You hang on to that booklet. Yeah, no, good question. If you want, of course, you can always reach out to us, ask these questions, and we can give you a more thorough explanation after the fact here as well. Another question, a couple more questions come through. Okay, does the signing authority need to be trained on the program to be able to sign off? Now, I believe that is correct. The signing authority has to have the training standard to. Okay, perfect, awesome.
They have to be qualified and have history and knowledge of the program that they're signing off on.
Perfect, awesome. Thank you, Vicki. And someone just said that they wanted to ask the same question. Okay, so there you go. That's all I have. Again, I apologize when
I have a
Zoom...
few more, Ryan. I can jump
okay.
in. I've got a few
Thank
more
you.
listed here. Yeah, no, absolutely. So just kind of, I was trying to highlight as we were going to see if we missed any. If we use trainers from NORCAT, is an audit needed?
I believe it still is, right? The standard just says you have to audit your trainers, even if they're a third party.
Yeah, and again, the audit is part of the mining. It's signing authority audit guidelines in mining. So regardless of who your trainer is, you still have to abide by it.
Perfect. And what I will say, of course, I do Surface Miner Common Core for IHSA, so we would be a third party trainer for that for any organization. And I do have CEOs, whoever, sit in on a portion of my sessions and just observe and audit the training. And you know, why not? That's fantastic. Make sure that we're touching on what we need to touch on, and that the training covers what you think it should. You know, I've had employers in the past, for example, say, we've had an issue with this in our minds. Could you please ensure that you touch on this or emphasize that component of the training program? Absolutely, absolutely. We will ensure that we're addressing any active issues, right? So, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Another one is it time to rethink this complicated modular training program and consider modeling operator competency training on the Working at Heights program?
I know that's been a discussion many times and it hasn't changed over yet, so I don't see it happening anytime soon.
Perfect. Thank you.
Scott has...
Sorry, go ahead, Scott.
Yeah. Well, I'd just be curious, and maybe from IHSA, is like it's a very similar process, because once you take the training from, say, IHSA or Workplace Safety North for Working at Heights, there's still an employer-specific portion that needs to be completed as well, and this is very similar to this portion as well.
Perfect.
Yeah, so absolutely, you're right there, Scott. And I think maybe going back to a little bit more of the standards where the Ministry of Labor, again, similar to the surface mining and the Common Core, is the program has to be submitted and reviewed. I'm not sure how often the programs actually get audited by the Ministry of Labor. I know for Working at Heights, we do have Ministry of Labor audits that are conducted on our Working at Heights program to ensure that we're following the standard. Obviously, that's part of an internal process as well with the signing authority, but perhaps that's maybe where they're going with that. And I've got a couple more, and we're getting close. I'm just going to ask, I think there's 2 more questions here. If a modular training application was submitted for a general program, for example, forestry, pit and road construction equipment operator training program, does a separate application need to be submitted for a machine specific program, for example, the bulldozer operator, or does this get reflected on the final modular training report once the individual modules are complete? And maybe Scott, you can, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead, Scott, if you want to.
Oh, I was hoping, Vicky. I was trying to listen to how the question was phrased there, but just have to, let me just take a peek. Is it in here? How would we audit third party? Sorry, Jen, maybe if you could just.
Yep, I can review it again. Yeah. So if a modular training application was submitted for the general program, so for example,
Common Core.
Well, they've got example of the forestry, pit and road construction equipment operator training program.
Yeah.
Then does a separate application need to be submitted for a machine specific program like the bulldozer operator, or does this get reflected on the final modular training report once the individual modules are complete?
This is, I think, the same question that we spoke to earlier with the putting the program number versus the specific, machine specific. And again, in the training standard, it'll show the main program of 600, 100, and then there's various numbers for the specific. I think the ministry, in my conversations with different offices, they've seen it both ways, where there's an application and a training report for each machine specific. If you do the 600, 100, and then the training report has all the machines listed under, or the specifics under it, they can still be processed. Again, that's a communication with the person entering your data to make sure that what you're submitting is being entered appropriately and they have what they need. There is a bit of a problem with our system and the numbers on there, and I don't think we're able to rectify that right now what the system is, so it's working with the paperwork. So it can be accepted both ways, but I would speak to your local office to determine what works for their office.
Perfect, thank you. One more, and I think it's more of maybe a statement than a question, but can you create an audit form so that we have a standard which meets the inspector's needs when he arrives? Everyone using a standard form would be easier for the compliance audit work. And I think that's probably put forward to probably all three of the organizations on this call.
What do you think, Ryan? We can work on something, or maybe it comes through the labor management committee.
I was just thinking, yeah, we could maybe look at something like that with the labor management committee. Of course, something an easy to use form that would be compliant. We could look at potentially developing something like that. We could run that through the working group and see if we can come up with a resource for you. It's a good question.
Perfect, thank you. I've got one more quick one. Why are the PDF copies of key forms and guidelines not available on a government website somewhere?
Currently, we've tried posting them, that we have compliance with accessibility, AODA compliance that we have to be. And as you know, with some of the modular documents, they are very old, and having them posted to a public website without meeting those standards at this point right now, we haven't been able to. Some of you are very familiar with the EOPG, which is the Employment Ontario Partners Gateway. We would like to see a page on there for modular and have all those documents available to you, and it is a work in progress, and we know it's something that's needed. But as of right now, just reach out to your local office if there's something that you need that you don't have access to.
Perfect. Well, thank you, everybody. I'm going to pass it back over to Ryan just to close out the session.
Okay. Yeah, thank you everyone for your participation. Thank you for the questions. That was outstanding. Glad to see that some of you hopefully got something out of that. Again, don't be afraid to reach out to all three associations on the call right now with any follow-up questions you might have or anything you wanted answered in more detail. Happy to address those individually with you. So next up is that survey we were talking about. You should have a pop-up here shortly. Please complete the survey, click the share feedback button. I promise it's very brief. It's only a couple of questions. So take a moment to look at that and give us some feedback on what you thought.
Perfect. So as you close out of the session, it is going to pop up. So it will be once you kind of leave the session, it will come up. So we would like to thank all of you for attending and participating today. And again, if you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to any of the associations, Ministry of Labor, Immigration, Training and Skills Development, WSN, or IHSA. We'd be happy to help you out. In addition, there is the resources that are available when you do exit this session. You can go up to sessions at the top and click on the session, and it will give you the downloads for the resources. And you can always visit our websites that have all the information available there too. So thank you very much, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.